Hello, my name's Stephanie Sandoval. Tonight we're going to be discussing learning intelligences, the various 8 methods, and how we process information. So we have a newsletter attached by my partner and myself, and the first page is how we learn and process information. The human brain, can do very much. Obviously, we can know it can do many things, but what we didn't quite know and what we're learning little by little is that it's broken down and very similar to the way that a computer works and its file cabinets and how it stores and processes and interprets information. We have our sensory memory, we have our short-term memory and our long-term memory. And based on different interactions with influences, environments, and others, is how all of that gets broken down and put in another sense in its own file cabinet for later storage. Um, it's almost like a registry system. So the most common sensory registry is our visual and auditory. I believe that that is so true because with visual, we're able to see things over and over and it kind of gets stuck in our memory. The same goes for auditory. If we hear it so many times, it just, it's permanently stamped in our system. Information can be received from an environment. It can be analyzed into those compartments in our brain. Like I like to use an analogy, like a file cabinet or like a computer. And when we need to refer back to that information, it's there. And depending on what it is and where it's stored, determines how the additional processes or interactions are perceived and interpreted and in turn outputted. So what I like to think is basically we have different processes of incoming stimuli at a time. And when we have those multiple things going on at once, multitasking or whatnot, then we have that parallel processing. And then there can be the multiple reasons for how and why we store the information depending on our motivation. And one thing for sure, we just don't know how and what our brain can really fully do. We've only tapped into a certain part of it. So as of right now, this is what we know. We have another page of understanding our learning. So there are 8 different learning intelligences that we know about. And each of those causes us to learn and interpret things and perceive things in many different ways. Each of those, whether we're an athlete and we tie everything or analyze everything in regards to physicality and how our body moves and what we can do with it. Whereas somebody that's musically inclined would be more hearing a rhythm or have that natural inclination to be able to make sound out of nothing. More logical learners are very mathematical, they're very organized, they kind of have a system of how to do things. So all of us learn in various ways, I'm sorry. And we can learn in more than one, but we're all kind of a lot more aligned to one versus another out of the 8. On our third page of our newsletter, we have information processing, and that's in regards to serial and parallel processing. So we have those 2 different ones on how our mind processes one versus the other in regards to how, whether it's one at a time, and where we think we can only process one at a time, and where it gets stored that certain way, and where there's multiple things going on, where we were talking about the multitasking, when our mind can do one thing, where we're working on one thing, we're already thinking ahead at what needs to be done next, or how we're going to integrate that with something else. Those are the various types of processing that our brain is able to do. And I like to think of that like how a processor on a computer works. If it has good speed, if it doesn't, what it can do and what it can't do. And then our last page on our newsletter is multiple intelligences, and we wrote about logical mathematics. So those people are like, again, they're um, very inclined to be more organizational, more logical. They are they see patterns in things as far as mathematical patterns. They're able to, associate things more with numbers in numerical sense, where those things might stick more to them. They might be more inclined to, remember a phone number or a certain way to learn a mathematical equation faster than somebody else that is more naturalistic, where they are more tied to the nature of things and the environment. So again, we all learn in such different ways that it's only how our brain is going to perceive it better than others and help us understand things better aligned to that natural intelligence that we're more um, able to adapt to and interpret for our own selves. Thank you so much.